What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, number one Knicks fan in the world. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a mailbag episode. These are some of my favorites. I love when y'all submit questions, concerns, or opinions and ask me to answer them the best way that I can. And then I love to see y'all follow-up reaction in the comments of the video. Shout out to everybody that submitted questions. Let's dive right into it. Camp177 asked me, do you believe with how impatient the NBA world is now that it has caused a lot of people to not reach their full potential in the league? Cam, this is an incredible question. I love these type of questions because it just brings insight and it helps us talk about not only the talent but also us because we're a part of it, right? And yes, I do think it causes a lot of people to not reach their fullest potential, and this is why. The funny thing about the NBA world is that a lot of people inside of it don't really watch college basketball, is what I found out since I started doing a podcast years ago. I thought everybody who liked basketball or is basketball lovers loved every type of basketball. But what I found out is people are NBA lovers. And that's all that they watch. They don't watch high school. They can care less about who's in the McDonald All-American. They don't care about college until it's the March Madness just to fill out a bracket. They're not watching anything that doesn't involve NBA professional basketball players. And the problem with that is, like you said, they grow impatient with younger players, mostly rookies or whatnot, and their expectations is merely off where they've been drafted. And it's frustrating for me because, number one, in the NBA world, we use data for everything except the draft, right? Data and history tells us that an expectation put on a player should not be based off where they were drafted, because we have so much information that has showed us we can have all-stars be developed from second round picks. They can be top picks. They can be middle of the pack picks. You can get an all-star anywhere in the draft. You can also get failures anywhere in the draft. You can have the number one overall pick and pick a failure. You can have the number 10th overall pick and pick a failure. You can pick later first round pick and a guy won't be in the league for years. So talent is everywhere throughout the draft. So I find it very amusing when we still place our expectations on where a player was drafted. Like, for an example, I'm okay if I have a number one overall pick. Obviously, you want that guy to be a Hall of Famer, all-star, face of the franchise. But even if he isn't, I think you still have to find value in having him be a resourceful player, like Andrew Wiggins, right? Andrew Wiggins was the number one overall pick, so people had these high, lofty expectations that he hasn't reached. But Andrew Wiggins has never in his career been a bum-ass player or a below-average player. Has he been frustrating in certain areas of growth and development? Sure, especially for Timberwolves fans. But he's always been an average at the least player and then above average. Like, at the worst version of Andrew Wiggins was just an average player. And that may be a stretch. I personally think he's always been a little bit above average on a professional level. But the fact that he was the number one pick and isn't an all-star, he's not on the cover of Sports Illustrated, he doesn't have his own shoe, he's not giving you 26 a night, people put failure. But in reality, he is a starting caliber player in the league, without a doubt. So I think we have to get better at that in the NBA world. It's recognizing that where you've been drafted no longer is your expectation. Now, I know on a surface level, obviously, if a guy is top 5, expectations are going to be lofty. But after a while, we have to just start evaluating the player on who they are and trying to get the most out of them and being understanding. You know what I mean? But it's like we can be 4 years removed and people are still going to be like, this is a guy, he was a number one overall pick. After a while, it's like, okay, he should be detached from that. The same thing with a second round pick. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, part of the story is like, man, he was a second round pick, but after a while, he should be more defined from something else. You know what I mean? Like, it's a part of Draymond Green's story, second round pick. But after a while, we just said this dude is an all-star defensive player of the year caliber. He's a champion. You know what I mean? It makes for a story, but he has to be defined by much more than what he was drafted at or where at. So I do think people's impatient, cannot allow people to reach their fullest potential because their fullest potential is something that isn't even real. If that makes sense, people put expectations on these people's potential based off where they were drafted, not off what they saw them do in college or translatable skills, because these people never watched them before they touched the NBA floor. All they see is, hey, he was drafted third, he should be the face of a franchise, when it just doesn't work like that. It never has, it never will be. Talent is everywhere. Everything is circumstantial and situational. So I think we have to move past putting expectations and pressure and, lofty potential expectations on people based off where they were drafted. We've seen number one picks be gone in 3 years. We've seen second round picks turn into Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally just like that. So we got to move past it. But I think that was an incredible question, Cam. A great question to start this video. So I appreciate you. The next question comes from Sheik Harden. He says, which player has surprised you the most or has played much better than you expected? I've said it slightly on the podcast. I've tweeted about it. And there's been players who have been way more, bigger or unexpected, Miles Bridges and things like that. But for me personally, I've been so impressed with Cole Anthony. I won't say critical, but I was definitely a person that wasn't, I want to find a proper way to put it. I was a little critical, I would say, of Cole Anthony because of the cloth I thought he was cut from. I never doubted him for what he did because he was always a good scorer. But I definitely was like, I don't know if I love or how much I like Cole Anthony, because he reminds me of a guy that's cut from like the Colin Sexton, I think even Kobe White, who they went to the same college, UNC or whatnot. Whereas, like, I think these guys can be chuckers in a 6-man role. And I don't know how much effective they'll be if the shot's not falling. But this year, at an early start, Cole Anthony has done a lot to round out his game and make himself more impactful without just scoring the basketball. We've seen him have a 13 rebound night. He's had 7-8 assists. He's constantly been a top scorer for them. We've seen him take over games during certain stretches, and I think that all comes from him doing everything else. When you're a willing passer, it makes teams harder to guard you because they don't know what you're gonna do. You know what I mean? Like, the most lethal guards are ones that can't be predictable. If you're in a game and all you're gonna do is score, and we know that's all you want to do, it's so easy for us as an NBA defense to key in on you. We're going to take certain things away, and we're going to force you to go into the air looking to get your own shot. Now you got to pass it. And now, because that's not what you want to do anything anyway. But if you're a willing passer, you're a willing shot maker, you're a willing facilitator, you're a willing rebounder, it opens up the game so much. It puts some confidence in your teammates. It makes the defense have to pay attention more to your teammates versus just keying in on you. And then, again, it makes you effective when the ball isn't falling, because there's going to be days, I don't care who you are, when the rim is just like, hey, none of your shots are going to go in today. It's just the name of the game. Some days it's nothing anybody is even doing, but as a basketball player, you just don't have it offensively, and it could be out of your control. But certain other things are a part of your control, and I think he's been doing a good job. And because I was so doubtful, I just want to make sure that I give him his flowers and speak on that, because anytime I'm correct on a player, I'll let people know about it. So if I was wrong, I want to let it be known as well. I'm not a 100% accurate scout. I mess up things and have bad projections or whatnot, and I think he's done a very good job this season establishing himself and separating from the pack of guards that they have in Orlando. Markelle is going to come back eventually. They just drafted Suggs at 4. RJ Hampton has a bunch of potential. I think Cole Anthony has solidified itself and now has put questions on who's going to be their starting point guard when Markelle does come back. You know what I mean? How is it going to work with Jalen Suggs? And credit to Coach Mosley, because this is what he does. He develops guards, and I think that's why they brought him in as a player developmental head coach for a young core in Orlando. But Cole Anthony, by far, has surprised me the most, and I hope he continues it, because I'm having a lot of fun watching his game develop in front of our eyes. So shout out to Cole Anthony. My guy Nelson North asks, I guess he's a Raptor fan. It sounds like a Raptor fan name. What do the Clips do if they, in parentheses 1-4, put themselves in a hole too deep for Kawhi and PG to dig them out of? Make some moves or wave the white flag this season and hope for health next year? Well, they can never wave the white flag if you're the Clippers, just because you have to remember the fact that they did the trade with Paul George to get him from the Thunder. And so they don't have their first round pick for this year. So if the Clippers struggle for the rest of the year and ended up with a lottery pick in this year's draft, they wouldn't even be able to keep the pick. It would go to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that is just not a good situation you want to be in. You don't want to be a team who gets the 7th overall pick hypothetically, and then you don't even get to reap the benefits of having that. Because hypothetically, if the Clippers had their pick and it was the 7th overall pick, you would be able to potentially package that pick with a Bledsoe or a Luke Kennard and try to make some type of move. But since you don't have that pick, you might as well try to win every single game that you can. Now, when you say make moves, obviously if there's a move to be made, you make it. But I'm just not sure what moves could be made for the Clippers. It's a lot going on. You know what I mean? They have the Kawhi situation going on. Serge Ibaka. I can't remember the last time I've seen Serge Ibaka suit up for the Clippers. Then you have Luke Kennard, who they paid handsomely. Some games he's there, some games he's not. Marcus Morris hasn't played in a minute. They have a lot of things going on. You know what I mean? They're trying to implement Eric Bledsoe. I think they're not too done. They're only 1-4. They can creep up out of there. They've had some good games, even in some of those losses. But I think once they find a rhythm, hopefully they don't allow themselves to fall too deep. But yeah, they can't wave the white flag at all. Once you lose your first round pick, there is no instance in where waving the white flag helps you. So I think the Clippers should just go out swinging as much as they can because they don't benefit at all from waving the white flag. Even like health things. If somebody's going to get hurt, they're going to get hurt. You know, resting Paul George won't have anything to do with next year, no matter how much you rest him this year. So don't wave the white flag, Clippers. Keep at it. And it would look very good if they didn't trade 15 picks to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The next question comes from Tommy Tombstone. Shout out to Tommy. He says his profile picture is Edmund Sumner in a Pacers uniform. So I guess he's a Pacers fan, which is why his question is related to the Pacers. But he says, should the Pacers be pressing the panic button? There's a lot of P's. Should the Pacers be pressing the panic button? If so, what's their next step? I don't think they should press the panic button, but I definitely think that the Pacers should be in a position where they are thinking about their next steps regardless. Because right now, as constructed, they're solid. They're not great. They're not super good. They're not bad, but they're confusing. And I think their 1-6 record don't really show exactly who they are as a team. They've had some incredibly tough, close losses that could, if it went any other way, their record could be really flipped around. They've had some tough losses too, but I think they're a team that has to find some identity. They've been hit with the injury bug over the last few seasons. You know what I mean? Caris LeVert last year, even the start of this year. Sabonis missed some time. Brogdon missed some time last year. TJ Warren, I can't remember the last time I saw him. It seems like he hasn't played since the bubble. Jeremy Lamb came back from an injury. They got a lot going on. They really have a lot going on. So I think they got to start coming up with an identity and making some decisions. Over the last few seasons, we've been told that they're going to try to make a move between Sabonis and Turner. That hasn't happened. Not that they're this worst fit in the world, but right now, currently constructed, it ain't working. And I think one of those two players would bring back something good for them. It would bring back something valuable. The Ben Simmons thing is off the table now that you've paid Malcolm Brogdon his extension. I think Chris Duarte has been, a hidden gem. So that makes it a little bit more flexible with some of those trades that you could potentially make. Jeremy Lamb is on the last year of his deal. You could do something with that potentially. I don't know, but they need to find a direction. Even if they were, let's just say that they were. They're 1-6. They've played 7 games. Let's just say they were 3-4 or 4-3. Even if that was the case, I think they still would have to have this same thing I'm saying, just finding a direction. That it's key that this is not a championship team. This team is a first round exit, can maybe win a first round potentially, but that's about it. So even with that being said, regardless, they need to find some direction. They haven't had a direction in I don't know how long. If we're being honest, they've had times where they exceeded expectations and they've been solid. But as far as a clear-cut direction on like, oh, the Pacers are rebuilding, oh, the Pacers are competing, I have no idea what they're doing. And I think they need to figure that out rather sooner than later and just push towards that direction fully. But until then, they'll be this team where it's like on paper, they're solid. They're either going to overperform or underperform like now, but they're always going to be a little bit of sense of hope. And that will always hold you back. Because once you start a rebuild, you know that's exactly what we're doing. We can trade in all our chips. We're gonna, invest in some player that we think highly of, whatever. But at least you have a direction. Even in your fan base, there's no such thing as underperforming when you're rebuilding. You know what I mean? So they have to find a direction. I think they have some players that have a substantial amount of value if they did want to start a rebuild or go in a certain direction. So we'll see. We'll see. Bam for 2022 Defensive Player of the Year. He asks, do you think this Hawks team will look the same come playoff time, or do you think they make a move at the deadline and try to contend going forward? Not this year. I think they'll look the same. I think their move will come in the offseason. They've got to let some things open up because the talent that they have, I think, is substantial. Like if they put a package together, it's going to be a very big package. You don't put the type of players that they have into a package to get something little. They have Cam Reddish, Herter, Okongwu, some draft capital. You use that to go get you a Bradley Beal. And I'm not sure Bradley Beal is available at this moment or will be during the season at all. So you got to hope that when offseason comes, some dramatic thing can transpire, or you can convince a Wizards organization or front office to just deal Bradley. You have to let some things happen. You know what I mean? Some drama has to, escalate some things or whatnot. But you're either going for the home run if you're the Hawks, or you just keep your current team. But you don't want to trade a Cam Reddish for some solid piece, or not piece, but some solid player to add, because I think you might as well just keep him, right? So if I had to put my money on it in any circumstance, I think the Hawks will look the same going into the playoffs, minus a very minuscule trade potentially. But I don't think anything big will come out of Atlanta just yet. Flash23_Flash asks, after the Rockets game tonight, or last night rather, were you impressed how the Lakers played with AD at the 5, and do you think Melo should start? I was a little impressed. It's hard to be too impressed because they played the Rockets, but I think they still need some movement. They did a little bit more movement and was a little bit better, but I think they need to break that habit of just ball watching on offense. I would start Melo for the foreseeable future. Obviously, when Trevor Ariza and Ellington and those guys started to get healthier, then yeah, you put Ariza at the 4 or at the 3, let LeBron run 4, whatever you want to do. But I do think you have to just start running AD at the 5. You do. And I would start Melo, like I said, at the foreseeable future. People talking about, but then your defense, the Lakers aren't guarding anything right now. So, what? Then you talk about scoring punch off the bench. That's what Malik Monk was there for. So, yeah, I really hope that they start Melo. He doesn't have to be the certified starter, but right now, start him. He's been super good. He's been reliable. Start him right now. And if he starts a couple games and it ain't the same, and he's been playing better off the bench, you just go right back to the bench. I don't understand why Laker fans feel like you have to make a decision and die by it. Like, start him, experiment. You have all of these different people in these different bodies. Like, try it. Y'all was willing to try the DeAndre Jordan shit. You might as well give Melo an attempt to start. I just don't see what you lose by doing that, personally. So hopefully it does happen. But I do like AD at the 5, obviously, as y'all know. My boy Lance Heinzman, he asks, how do you feel it? How do you like the Jazz's chances this year? They have a great chance like they did last year, man. The Jazz have a good team. You know what I mean? It's all about what happens in the playoffs. I do think that their time is running out with this same exact team. This Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert, Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal team. Like, this is the same team from last year. Rudy Gay and Eric Pascal are there, but we haven't seen much of them yet. But for the most part, it's the same core. So if the Rudy shit comes to bite you again in the playoffs, you're probably going to be poised with having to make a decision. You know what I mean? Like something is going to have to happen, or you're just going to have to keep trying and hope that one year you get over that hump. If there was any year, I think it would be this year. It looks a little open this year, man. They should go for it and go full throttle. I like the version of Mike Conley that we're getting early in the season. Rudy has been very, very better on the offensive side. And I think that's what they should do going forward. Is just trying to make it work, trying to make teams pay with Rudy on mismatch situations, so that when the playoffs come, he has some familiarity on what to do and how to play. But yeah, they definitely have a chance. I wouldn't lie to you. The Jazz are legit. Jay Bray A says, shout out to Jay. It feels like he makes every video. Certain teams like the Lakers have disappointed to start the year, but we know they'll probably turn it around. But do you see there being a team that so far has disappointed and may continue to do so? A few teams. I mean, like the Pacers. They're 1-6. That's just a deep hole to come out of. As good as I think they are, I think they're, like I said, I think they're solid, but that's a deep hole. The Clippers at 1-4. If they continue to fall, it could come back to bite them. The Blazers are a bit better than the Pacers and the Clippers, but they still haven't done anything that has blown me away. And I think there's some other Western Conference teams that have made some huge strides. But yeah, the Phoenix Suns look very tired, man. Phoenix Suns look very, very tired. So again, it's still early. These teams aren't out of it. Even the Boston Celtics, they just got to start getting it going. But I would say the Blazers. Damian Lillard hasn't really looked well. Them as a team on certain nights have looked just disgusting. New head coach. They have a lot of things that could just be reasoning for them to not be as good as people projected them to be. But I think there are some other teams that could take their spot out west, because like you said, we have to expect at some point the Lakers are going to get rolling. Memphis looks like they'll be better than I thought they would be. So maybe the Blazers and the Suns, man, if they don't get it together, I don't know. And it's tough to say that about the Suns because they just came back from the finals, but Devin Booker looks a bit tired. Chris Paul is starting to look a little aged. Still early. Not saying it's going to continue to stay like that. Obviously, Aiden and the Suns and the money and all that, they got some shit going on, even outside of basketball, that potentially could be affecting them. My boy Ishan, I want to try to pronounce this last name. Ishan Bhattacharya. Ishan Bhattacharya. Hope I'm saying it right, brother. If I'm not, let me know in the comments how to pronounce it. But he asks, do you think Dallas is getting lucky right now with their wins, considering the team still looks disjointed as hell on the court with no defined rotations to rely on? I don't think they're getting lucky. I just think they're doing what good teams or solid teams do, which is beat teams that you're better than. Dallas beat the Rockets. They beat the Spurs. Who else? They beat the Kings. Those are teams that I think that they're better than. Even like at their worst, I think the Mavericks are just better than. You know what I mean? Luka makes them better than those teams. And that's what they've done. They beat teams that they're better than. And so by the time they get going, they can maybe start competing on a high level against the other upper echelon teams. But Dallas is always going to be this type of team where they're going to play better than they are, just because they have Luka, who's going to make people better. But I do think that when it comes to the buyout market, the trade deadline, they got to find some guys who can just push the needle this much. Mavericks always talk about superstar names, or not superstar, but all-star names, all offseason. Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan. We're going to trade Porzingis for CJ McCollum. It's always these top-tier names, but I think they got to start dipping it down and looking at guys who are on high contracts that'll be released or let go in the upcoming free agency. So like Gary Harris. Gary Harris makes around $20 million. The next time he signs somewhere, he's not going to sign for $20 million. You know, like Otto Porter. Otto Porter is a guy that went to the Warriors for a little bit of money. Those are the type of players the Mavericks should be trying to look for. The Otto Porters, the Gary Harrises. They did it with Frank Ntilikina. That was a good situation that they did, and I think they should continue to look that route and add those guys who aren't all-stars or superstars, but they're better than the current Maverick role players, and they won't be as expensive. You know what I mean? Like, I really think Otto Porter could be a raise on Dorian Finney-Smith, and now Dorian Finney-Smith comes off your bench, you're that much better. So the Mavericks have to find a way to get better without trying to make these drastic changes all the time, in my opinion. And the last one comes from D-Ball12. He says, is Cade Cunningham already in a big disadvantage in the Rookie of the Year race? Yeah, I mean, any rookie that starts off injured and misses, the first few games is at a disadvantage. But there's a lot of basketball left. Hopefully, him and his team get some chemistry. He can knock off some of that rust and get going, get involved. But yeah, I mean, anytime you start off missing games, you're at a disadvantage because the other rookies are developing that chemistry. They're getting a head start for the NBA feel and pace, and they're finding their role within their teams. But it's still early, still a lot of time left. And I think right now, Cade Cunningham shouldn't even be thinking about the Rookie of the Year race. He should just be thinking about fitting in with his team, getting his win under him, getting in basketball shape fully, and making sure he doesn't re-aggravate his injury to have a longer injury time or time off the court, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's another mailbag episode. Like I said, I appreciate you guys every time you participate and submit your questions. Hope I pronounced everybody's name right. If at any point I didn't, put it in the comments. And let me know if y'all got any opinions that I didn't address that you want to hear me address. The mailbag episodes can be a weekly thing. We could turn it into something. So anybody who's watching this that may not follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter for when I do submit these questionnaires for y'all to submit y'all questions, or let me know in the comments some of the questions you would like to hear me talk about or address in the next mailbag episode. As always, I'm Pee Wee the Plug, the host of NBA Weekly. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you're new, subscribe. As always, leave a like, drop comments. I will see y'all in the next episode. I am out. Peace.